Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for a Learning and Growing webinar on Don't Fear AI, Embrace It, Feedback, Idea Generation, and Beyond. Our presenter today is Angela Spires of College of Southern Nevada. My name is Sidra, and I'll be your moderator today for Hawks Learning. We will have a live Q&A session after the presentation, so please enter any questions you have into the module, and we'll answer them as we go. Thank you so much. I'll now hand it over to our presenter.
Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing today? I'm going to turn my chat box on over here so I can see it. Wonderful. Okay, with a thumbs up, I'm glad you guys are doing well. I am going to get started with this presentation. A little bit about me. My name is Angela Spires. I have been teaching for 14 and a half years. I'm very quick to integrate new tools and technologies into my classroom. So when AI started becoming an issue with students using it to submit their work, I jumped into checking out what AI was, how ChatGPT worked, how other AI bots work, what they could do and what they couldn't do. So one of the biggest things that I have tried to talk to faculty at my school about were, what are you doing with AI? So generally with our faculty, there is that resistance. For some of our faculty are jumping in, right? And others of our faculty are a little afraid of AI. They don't want to play with it. They don't want to touch it. They want to avoid it. So in the seminar today, I am just going to talk a little bit about some of what I do in the class, some recommendations for how to create assignments that are more AI resistant, but also how to create AI assignments that can engage students and help them to understand that AI is a remarkable tool. And it really is an amazingly remarkable tool. And if used correctly, it can really help our students. It's when it's used incorrectly or used for plagiarism or to complete their work is when it becomes a problem. And so having students understand that problem, be aware of it, be aware that we're aware of it, is huge in the classroom, and making sure that our students aren't really using AI in an inappropriate fashion. So, see if I can. All right. So here's what students know about AI. They know that it can write a lot of their assignments for them now. They can plug in information. They can plug in a short essay or story pieces from a chapter and put in questions and ask AI to answer those questions, and AI can do this. AI can write papers. AI can write responses to any kind of reading. It can create summaries. So students are aware that AI can work for them. They are also aware, and sometimes I think if my students would just spend as much time researching and understanding all of these things as they would put into their work, it wouldn't be an issue. But students are aware that the software that instructs AI is not reliable for the software. So companies like Turnitin have made statements to the point where they say our AI detection system is newer and it's not 100% accurate. So even if a student does use AI and say, hey, this came up on the AI checker, I've had students that have come back and said, well, those aren't reliable. It's in the news how unreliable they are. So you can't prove that it was AI over what I've written, which is discouraging in part on the student. But also it made me really think about, okay, if students know this and they know what it can do for them, if I can make sure that they understand what it can't do, what its limitations are, and the importance of using it as a tool instead of for plagiarism use, then maybe that I can get through to a group of students where they can see like, okay, I can use this as a tool. I know what's appropriate and not appropriate. And they also know how AI continues to advance. Even from when this first started being popular to now, AI has made advances. And you can see that with ChatGPT, where they keep coming out with newer and newer models of it. So faculty using AI, and this is what I was talking about earlier. So I have faculty who are all in. They're playing, they're learning, they're doing assignments. I work with faculty who are just getting started playing around, understanding a little bit of it, figuring out what's going on. And then I have faculty who totally avoid using AI at all. They talk about it as plagiarism. They don't incorporate any AI assignments in the classroom. Um, they switch to different methods of accepting work, sometimes not even handwritten work, so that it can't be done by AI. So generally, the faculty kind of fall into so thinking about where you are now and where you want to be with AI. You may decide like what you want to do or need to do. So if you're at the avoiding assessment, I would suggest moving into play around with it some and see what it can offer you section, no matter what class you're in or what you're teaching. Knowing what it can do for the students is really important as a teacher because then you know what you're up against with students using it, but you also learn what opportunities you have to use it as a tool for those students. And if you're into playing around phase, I'll suggest trying to move into the all-in phase. It's not going anywhere. You're working on policies. Some schools have implemented policies, but it's really not going anywhere. So it's one of the technologies that eventually we're going to have to embrace. The quicker we do that and get it ahead of the students, or at least on the same page with the students, knowing what it's capable of, the better off you are with AI. So if you haven't taken any time to play with it, get on ChatGPT or any chatbot. It pops up constantly now on everything, on Bing.com, AI chatbot. When you open PDF, chatbot, they pop up constantly now. So if you're looking at a PDF and a chatbot pops up, what are the main ideas of this paper? Who's the most common cited source in this paper? Ask it questions and see what it's capable of doing. You'll find what it can do. You'll find what it's not great at doing when you do that. But you can also see like, maybe I can use this as a tool and showing like how often one text, one citation is used over another. It depends on what you're teaching. Being able just to get in there and play is the biggest thing in not being afraid of it. The more you play with it and understand it, the more you can introduce it to students in a productive way. AI is very much so a tool. And you want to teach students to use it as well. I don't usually put this much detail in the slides, but I want to make them available for anyone who wants them afterwards. So I added a little more detail into these slides. So I know the video will be available, but sometimes people really just like to look at the slides and see what's going on. If you don't want to watch the whole thing through, you still have access to the slides and they can be able to tell you some of the things that I do in my classroom. AI tools, they can check assignments to see if they meet the instructions and the criteria, especially if it's in a bullet point list and you say, hey, can you check for these things? You can take a rubric and pull the pieces of a rubric off, put them into AI and say, these are the instructions, and you put the instructions in AI. This is the rubric. Here's my assignment. Did I meet the qualifications? And what AI will do, it will pull up information based on each of those criteria that you put in, and it will tell you which of those criteria you have and if you're missing one. You can also ask it for advice and feedback on it, and it's going to give you advice and feedback on those certain areas. So if you have a summary section, it may talk to you about adding in more details or taking off certain details. If you have section where it asks you to give your opinion and you don't have that in there, it's going to tell you, oh, you're missing criteria number 4 where you give your own opinion. That needs to be in there. So AI can actually tell you what's missing on an assignment, which is an amazing tool for students to know, hey, I did this assignment, I didn't realize that I'm missing this component of it. So this is a very productive way for them to use it as a tool. We can also give spelling and mechanics and word choice feedback. So if they're like running it through like a draft, we can run a draft through it and get that kind of feedback. Can do that also with rubrics to give students potential scores. Now, the way the rubric score and the way I score are very different. The biggest thing I've learned about AI, when it grades student papers, it's much harsher than I am when I grade student papers, because I've been working with the students since day one. AI has not been. So I can see where they've grown and been able to come up with ideas, whereas that's not always really clear um, to AI. All the students are the exact same boat. Now, if you're doing something that's not based on improvement or growth, then that might work fine. In a writing class, which is what I do, knowing what they couldn't do at the beginning of class and what they're doing really well now, even though maybe it's not excelling at it, that plays a big role in when I'm giving you feedback and I give my students feedback. AI can generate ideas and questions. This is great for when students are doing research because they also often limit their questions to just what they're thinking about. So if you run it through AI, and I have my students do this with lots of their research papers and topics, and say, okay, what are the current issues in educational leadership? And can you give me some questions that I might look into research on? And what AI will do generally is give you about 10 to 20 questions, and it breaks it down into these little categories. So it might look at the social application of it. It might look at like 2-year colleges, 4-year colleges, K through 12 schools. Kind of breaks it down into categories for them to think outside the box. So this is a great way to have them use it to generate more ideas and what they're thinking about, to kind of broaden that scope. And that's one of the things I feel like students are a little bit, they're very narrow with their thinking a lot of times when it comes to research. So having them being able to broaden and expand that and look at different ideas, also great tool. This can help students sound more academic or write with a specific audience in mind. One of the things that I played with that was the most fun was like taking information and looking at the information and having it raise, like put the information into ChatGPT and say, write this in the form of a first grader, or write this in the form of a snarky teenager, right? And so it gives it to me different tones and different wording, so that I could see like how could I get this down to like kindergarten or first grade level. Someone had a question. It's hard for me to see the question. So is it in the chat box or?
It's in the chat box. If you're having difficulty understanding, then please go ahead and go under more where you see dot dot dot, and from there you can click on captions and it'll pull up the captions for you from there.
Me?
No, whoever
Oh,
is having difficulty understanding.
oh, okay. CC is community college. Was that question for me?
No,
Closed
CC is
captioning.
closed captioning.
Oh, closed captioning. Yeah, I was gonna say if it's in mine, it's community college, but okay, we're good. Um, all right, I'm good. So giving feedback on papers or assignments based on the assignment's instructions. AI can also do that. So it's kind of like a little mini writing center in that case, where it can give them grammar feedback, kind of like Grammarly does. It can give them feedback based on the instructions. It could also, you can plug the instructions in and put it in there and ask them specifically, hey, what does this do? Does this sound right? And it can give them word choices and things to help them sound more academic, keeping the audience in mind. What you don't want is for them to use exactly what it says. So how they word things with AI is extremely important. Asking AI, I'd like ideas on how to make this sound more academic or more formal, but not using their exact words. So getting them to be able to use it as ideas, not words, to turn in. So those are a few of the ways in which AI can be used by students as tools. It's extremely productive with these elements. It is very much an idea generator. It pulls information from everywhere. So it's like a person who's just a lot more world experience. It's giving them things and ideas for them to work with and think about. So those things are all amazing that AI can do. They're things that our students need. They need larger views outside of the classroom. And this is a nice way for them to get um you just don't want them to kind of slip into the other aspects. So a few of the things that I've done in my class, and I've done several AI summits. But I'll have my students run their topic through AI and ask it what I just talked about a minute ago, questions or issues related to it that could be used for research on a specific topic. And they have to put it there, what they got from ChatGPT, what they had at the beginning, what they learned from it. Reflecting on their use of ChatGPT is really important because it shows that they're using it as a tool and not that they're using it to create their assignment. So they have to cite that they got it from GPT. They want to say, this is where this information came from. They also have to talk about what value they found in it. What did it add to what information they had? So having it used as a tool where they reflect on why it works that way as a tool is very important. Checking the assignment, I just talked about that. We can give them some solid feedback. It's not always very specific, but if you have criteria, especially that are listed criteria, it will tell you yes, 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 no, and go through your criteria and do that for you. And it sets the tone, right? So whether you want snarky teenager, you want it first grade level, you want it academic, you're talking to parents, you could say, what are some appropriate word uses when trying to talk to parents about chronic absenteeism, right? And then AI, ChatGPT is what I use most common, but AI is going to pop up a whole list of things like phrases and sources and things that the students can use when doing that. So it is really helpful in all these situations. Then once they get to that point, it's really important to create the ethical understanding of AI. When is it appropriate to use AI and when is it not? And so what I did last semester with my students is halfway through the semester, this is after they've gotten feedback from me, they know what my feedback sounds like. I took one of their assignments and I put the entire assignment, article with it, the assignment based on the article, put all that into ChatGPT, and then I said, evaluate this paper for how well it met the assignment requirements, and I put each student in individually. And the feedback that came back from that, I then took that feedback and put it into the student assignment. When I was finished with that, I asked them all to read their feedback, and then I posted on there these questions that are at the bottom here. And basically I came out and said, hey, I just used ChatGPT to grade your assignment that you guys just looked over. These are really important writing skills that you're going to need in research papers. So you need to know if you're on the right track. Okay. So answer these questions about the feedback that ChatGPT gave you. Like, what did it say about your response? Do you think it's ethical for me to do this? When you read it, what do you think is missing? Do you think my responses would be the same or different? In what way? Does the response have my voice to it or any voice to it? Do you think I would have said something simpler? What else did I have provided? Do you consider that fair? Fair is a big question with students. What's fair? Everyone received full marks. Because I graded it with AI, I went ahead and did it as a formative assignment and put the AI marks in there. And is that fair? And then we had a discussion about, after everyone had answered these questions, we had a class discussion about this and the ethics of AI, why it was a tool, how it was a tool. Most of my students did say they felt like it was unethical because they hadn't been told in advance that I was going to use that to grade their assignment, that the parameters hadn't been set up for AI to grade the assignment. A couple of them said, well, if AI is using the same rubric that I use, then it should be okay. Most of them felt my responses would be different, which they actually were. I did go back and give them feedback so that they could see what my responses were in ChatGPT. After which we had even more discussion about this, because then it was very aware of how generic ChatGPT was in there giving them feedback and how very specific that was. And like, hey, this is too long. It's a summary. It should be this. So those things came in really handy when looking at it and saying, like, most of my students agreed, nope, it's not ethical for me to do that without you being aware. Most of my students felt that I would give them better feedback. And then after I gave them feedback, they felt my feedback was more helpful. So this is how I introduce the ethics and limitations of ChatGPT to my students. So I have it in here, like this is what I did. I have the exact questions on the next slide. But when I talk to students about it, the biggest thing I ask is the feedback useful? Not is it good or bad? Is it useful feedback? The reason I want to know if it's useful, because the biggest thing with feedback is if it's not going to be useful to them, then why are we doing it? Okay, I'm going to stop and answer this question really quick. Yes, my script is still on the bulleted list that I have on there. So yes, that's definitely on there. I gave you the overview of how I did it. Most how different were the responses. Catherine, I'm guessing you mean AI's responses to my responses or the students' responses to the ethical questions? Because AI's responses, one, AI wrote about 3 paragraphs worth of responses because the students were supposed to do 3 separate things. So they wrote really long paragraph responses, but they were also very generic responses. Yeah, so AI's responses were very generic. It talked about, oh, you need to be more specific, or you might want to add a little more detail in here. It had comments like that, but it didn't really dive into like where I would say, hey, the summary should just get on the main point. There shouldn't be specifics in it. And it doesn't need a citation because there should not be any specifics in it. So try to cut this down where you're only hitting on the main point, nothing else. AI says something similar, but it's in a paragraph form. Mine's in a sentence form that basically just says, hey, review your summary technique. This is what you need for summary. They gave them 3 paragraphs of information. Again, all the paragraph was generic and it never said, look at your second sentence. This is a perfect example of paraphrasing or something like that. It didn't ever give them those specifics in there. Whereas when I look at it, I'm like, hey, like this is where the specifics come in. Make sure your citations in there. You might want to add a little bit more because paraphrasing is a little longer. So in 1 or 2 sentences compared to their paragraph, I gave them more meaningful information that they could actually use and apply. Even though AI was right about what summary, paraphrasing, and quoting, what it is and what it needs, it didn't have that personal touch of what am I missing? What can I do with it? So that's kind of the difference in the responses. Am I using an AI platform that would teach students writing private when they're running them through AI for feedback? No, I tell the students if they want to run, oh, no, I don't identify the students at all when I put information in. So there's no identifying factors. It's just the assignment itself. And then I copy and paste into the student, but I'm not using anything that keeps information private because I'm not putting any private information in. It doesn't have access to any of my students. And I'm putting their information in myself. So I'm giving it to them based on that, if that's what you're asking. We don't have a private platform at our university yet. So we don't have that on there. So I have run things through IRB. So I kind of treat AI like I would an IRB thing. I keep everything as generic as possible when I'm putting student information in. If I'm having them put their information in, they choose where it goes on there and they can choose what AI bot to use. But I do make sure that I don't ever put anyone's name with anything. That's really important. I only put the information in. Oh, it definitely provides positive feedback as well as constructive feedback. So it does have some advantages. It's just is not as specific. So I think it could be used, I think teachers could use it fine giving feedback for smaller assignments that they don't need to give a lot of very specific details on. It gives positive and constructive, and you can just say that. I would like to have both positive and constructive feedback for the students. So AI detection, here's the thing with AI detection. Sometimes it's harder, sometimes it's not. Oh, I don't know that it's going to get a bunch better. They're trying it. Um, but yeah, it doesn't seem like it does a lot of weird stuff for me. But the detection, I usually, if something comes up that it was AI detected and turn it in, I usually go through 3 or 4 more plagiarism checkers that are AI checkers. And if it comes up AI on all of them, I then count it that way. If it's half and half, I'm like, nope, it's not reliable enough to do it. Most of the things, one of the things I do for my students is I have it write an essay. It's an essay they have to do based on their instructions, and it writes out an essay. And I pull the essay up, and we look at it as a class. It's very formulaic. You'll see like topic, sentence, evidence, sentence, evidence, sentence, evidence, and it always ends on evidence and never ends on their voice. So I'm going to move through this, and you guys will have this information available, but I'm going to move through this. So this is one of the big things you can do to create assignments that are AI resistant. Make sure that voice is part of the assignment. Student voice is not something that AI can mimic. I mean, it can say things into a snarky teenager or a first grader, right? But it actually doesn't have an authentic emotional voice. It's not human. So anything that you make the students reflect, have opinions, talk about it, make sure it includes their voice. And all of my papers require students' voice at the beginning and end of a paragraph. So it can't end on a quote, right? It has to be unique and specific. The more specific, harder it is to use AI assignments from real world events that are new or local, less news coverage, less for it to pull. Use multimedia for assignments when possible. It can't create presentations or multimedia assignments. So when you have that option to use that, have students help create assignments. This works with student agency because students get more excited about assignments that they have a hand in creating or participating in, and they're more likely to be excited about those assignments. So it has nothing to do with what they create, but the fact that they got a hand in creating it. And I let students do this in my class a lot, have much less plagiarism issues once I started letting students in on creating assignments. They can also do time on task in the classroom to complete assignments. All of these things are great ways to make the assignments less AI resistant and actually see what your students working on during that time period. Here's some things that AI can't do. It doesn't have an authentic voice, can't be empathetic or have human emotion. If the paper requires any kind of element that requires human emotion, AI can't do that. It's not real. It doesn't sound real. It can't do the multimedia project. It can't create assignments in person or in class. So if you have more in-class assignments, more in-person assignments, and it can even create research papers that are not formulaic. Almost every paper that I've had to create has some kind of pattern to it that's very noticeable. So these are some of the things that I've seen. The ethics discussion, the semester that I did that, last semester I did that, and I did not have a single student turn in a paper that had AI detection in it for final. And I had another online class that I didn't do that in, and I had multiple students turn in papers in that class. Whereas the class that I had the ethical discussion on, that class went much smoother. And each semester I add more or different AI projects in. And I know I'm almost out of time, so I wanted to give you guys a minute to see if you guys have more questions. This is like the quick and dirty part of this. You guys have other questions that I can answer for you. My email is at the very beginning of this, and I'm more than happy to talk to anyone about this at any point in time. I use AI a lot. So, oh, see, yeah. So it depends on the AI bot you use. Some AI will change resource, like your sources, and it'll make them up. Like it'll pull a name that's famous in that field, but they'll just make up a total article for it. So I can see why it might do a short story synopsis. However, if you take the short story itself and copy and paste it in there and then ask them to do it a synopsis, usually doesn't do that. No, nope. Nothing requires any paid version of anything. And I let them choose what AI bot they want to use. They do not have to use GPT. They can use any AI bot. I use ChatGPT, but I have a list of free ones that I'm just like, just pick one. Um, so nothing requires them to cost money. I use open education resources. So I teach the community college, nothing requires them to use money of their own. But creating assignments this way has drastically dropped how many AI submissions I've gotten. And like, showing them how to use it as a tool has been very helpful. I like ChatGPT a lot. Um, I mean, on Bing right now, they have, I can't remember what the one on Bing is called. It just pops up when you go to Bing, and it has one on there. It's okay. It works okay. Um, Most of them, if you go into them and play with them, you can generally find one that you like. But ChatGPT, I love playing with it. But yeah, anytime I see one pop up, a bot pop up, I start talking to it. Um, I haven't really complained a lot about one over another. There hasn't been a lot of talk or discussion about that. Um, Students generally, like I give them a list, they pick it. We don't actually usually talk a lot about which one they use. So that no, I haven't got grumble or pushback on which AI bot. Most of the students, either they really know what AI can do, or they may not have started playing with it yet. So it provides them that opportunity to see how it's a whole. I know the recording is definitely available. If you want to email me, I can send you the PowerPoint. I don't know about the PowerPoint being available, but I'd be glad to send it to you. I'm going to go back. My name is Angela Spires, and it's on there, but it's angela.spires@csn.edu. So if you want to email me to get it, I'd be glad to send it to anybody that needs it. Does anybody else have questions? I got the two question and answer questions. I think I answered them. I don't see any others. No problem. And I'm always free to talk. I have a lot of peers that are working with AI right now. Let me go back to this one really quick. What guidance? I wanted to read you this one really quick. What guidance? There it is. To give your students as they move from AI-friendly classes into other courses at the college. Mostly, I talk about all the ways that AI can be a tool, but I also give them a lot of other resources. I talk about how our writing center works, how BrainFuse works, how Grammarly.com works. I give them a lot of resources that they can use, and I fit AI in with that. So as they're working with other things, I try to fit that into how it can be used as a tool along with all those other things. I do not know math instructors that are using it as of now, but I can see what I can find out in the college. Yeah, so that's the other thing in the community college. We have some students who are great at knowing what's going on with AI, and we have some students who are struggle, just getting the charge in the system. So I I have a list and talk them through how to use AI and even show them in the classroom and give them examples. That's how we often pull things up on the board. It's me going in and using it to show them examples of it. So if I show them examples in class, and I also will put screenshots in with my instructions if it's not something super simple. So as long as I give them very detailed instructions, we don't have any issues at all. So in online classes, I'm going to do my ethical discussion once again this fall, but put it in my online courses as well. So I think just having them be aware of it as a tool. So in my announcements, I talk about using it as a tool. I have assignments created and talk about how AI can be as a tool and show them what AI can do. And then having that ethical discussion with them about AI in an online setting, whether it's through announcement or discussion board, that's how I'm integrating it into my online classes. I already have students using it in online classes, but the ethical part I'm integrating in now. Did I get all the questions? Formulaic for research papers, I mean, like every paragraph is the same. It has like a topic sentence and then it has evidence. sentence, evidence, sentence, evidence. There's no voice at all in it. It doesn't really explain things in there. So kind of every paragraph is set up the exact same way. Limited information, evidence, limited information, evidence, limited information, evidence. So it just kind of goes back and forth. And each of the body paragraphs fits that exact same mold. It's almost like it puts it into a specific mold and repeats that for all the body paragraphs. Now it has different information, but the paragraphs all look exactly the same. Their structure is exact. Ooh, math GPT. I haven't tried that with an English teacher. It's not case sensitive. No, it's just when I was doing this formatting, put it all in capital letters. It's not case sensitive at all. Have an assignment that doesn't require AI. How do you balance weaker students who use AI to write a better paper against students who don't use AI and receive a poor grade? So generally with my students, I give a lot of papers in the beginning of class that require them, like that are narratives or things that require them to use a lot of voice, so I can see how they write in the beginning, so that I know what their work looks like. So when it has a drastic change, I can kind of see that. So what I generally do is I start working with students right from the beginning, and depending on what level of English it is and what level I'm teaching, I'll offer them different forms of help. So I'll set them up with writing center visits. I'll show them how to use Grammarly and BrainView so they can get writing center help. I'll talk to them about their AI use and how it can be more helpful. So basically, I pretty much set everything up from the beginning to have a lot of voice in it, so I see their authentic self work, and then I can see how it fits to see if they're using AI. And I pretty much assess their work based on where they started in the class and where they've come on their next assignment and how they're improving, because writing is a process. So I have to constantly be looking at it as a process. I hope that makes sense. AI to focus on particular issues. I love talking about AI. So I would be more than happy to do another one about AI. Let's do AI assessment. No, I would be more than happy to, yeah, to do that. I wanted to get more people embraced in using AI was my biggest goal with this. And then the more people that are committed to using it, then talk more about different things that you can do in your classroom. Do I have any other questions? Absolutely. Shoot me an email and I'll be glad to share my PowerPoint with anybody. And if you have other questions or that I might can help you with, please let me know. Thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it.
All right, awesome. That looks like all the time we have for questions. Thank you, Angela, and thank you all for attending today. We will be emailing you a link to view the recording of this webinar once it's available. If you or any of your fellow instructors are interested in presenting for our Learning and Growing webinar series, please submit your proposals to the Learning and Growing website, which I've linked in the chat for easy access. These free webinars are brought to you by Hawks Learning, an innovative educational courseware company. To learn more about our mastery-based course materials and how Hawks can enhance learning outcomes for you and your students, please visit hawkslearning.com, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thank you all so much.